That's all right, Laura. We're good. We're live. We're going to give a couple minutes just for people to log on. You don't have to hit anything, and then I'll just jump in at 6:30. We're ready. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started momentarily. All right, it's 6:30. We're just going to jump in, Laura. Welcome, everyone. My name's Carrie Fowler, and I am the Executive Director of Parent and Family Services. If this is your first time joining us for Facebook Live, welcome. We go Facebook Live usually about once a month with a campus partner to bring all of our Wolfpack families important information, updates, reminders, and highlight campus partners that are pertinent to the time and have poignant information to share. And so that's why we're here this evening. Laura, if you want to jump to the next slide. Oh, that's all right. So before I introduce Laura, we're running on we're ready for Friday is what's happening tonight, everybody. So just tag along with us. This is going to be a fun one, I promise. For those of you that don't know or aren't familiar with Parent Family Services, we are here for all of our families. We are here whether you have questions or just need additional insight, anything to support your student. That's what PFS does. So we've got a helpline. We also have weekly coffee chats where you can drop in, ask questions. We love meeting our families in our Zoom rooms. And if you need anything at all, just know that's why we're here. All of that being said, tonight we're going to talk about prevention services. And we have a very special guest with us this evening, Laura Boyd from NC State Prevention Services. And it's a very timely conversation because for many of you, your students are coming home for fall break. We're approaching kind of that midway mark. Whether your student is a first year student or a returning student, this can really be a moment where students begin to feel something about their transition. And even those students that might be seniors, right? And so there's lots of emotions and stress, reality checks, lots of things going on at this point in the fall semester for all of our students. And so we're going to invite Laura on to share some insight and some resources, and then we're going to take questions live. So you can drop your questions right in the comments below, and we will get answers straight from the source. So I will be done talking, and now we can really jump to the next slide. And Laura, it's all you.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you. First, I'm just asking my friends in Parent Family Services, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear
Yes.
you. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. I am so delighted to be here with you as parents and other family members of college students. This very year, I am also a parent of a brand new college student. So I feel like I am finally in it with you as well, even though I've been working in higher education for so very many years, and just dedicating my work to the college student experience, which is such a delight for me because this is for me as a counselor and as a counselor educator. Um, the most exciting time of the life. In the lifespan, there is so much happening. This is really where students are just coming into who they are, who they want to be, what their values are, how they want to spend their time, where they want to dedicate their energy for their careers, finding out who their friends are going to be, some for a lifetime. They're really going through a lot. And so it's just such a dynamic time. And it's really a privilege, let me just tell you, families, to walk alongside your students and to be with them, to help them, to serve them. And that's really how we view our work in prevention services with your students. I want to kind of just give a little context about prevention services because some of you are going to say, well, what are you preventing? What is this all about? And what I want to say is prevention services is really about three things. It's about education, providing really high quality education to your students, basically psychoeducation, making sure they have good quality education about mental health so they can take that in and really attend to their well-being. It's also about giving them high quality information about alcohol and other drugs. And why is that important at this age and stage? Well, it's important because no matter what we think about this, and no matter how we may want them to not do this, it is also a time where they are potentially exploring these things and experimenting. And so, if those things are going to happen, we want to make sure that they really have the most high quality information, particularly around harm reduction, but how substances can impact them, both physically, but also psychologically. And also what the consequences might be if they do use. So we want to make sure that they have all of that information. And then with our CARES program, we really look at this as early intervention work from a mental health standpoint, but really in lots of different areas. We do support students from lots of different lenses. And so I'm going to be talking to you today as parents and families about how you can use the CARES program as a tool to support your students. So we'll get more into that, but really, again, that's an early intervention tool where we really want to make sure that we are helping the students get what they need early on to prevent any big crises down the road. But encompassing all of that, again, we do all of this through outreach. We do this through a very inclusive lens, a very holistic lens that's developmentally appropriate, a very non-judgmental lens. We really want to make sure that we are giving our students everything that they need. And we are working across campus with our campus partners to really enhance, again, the individual's experience. We want to make sure their well-being is as good as it can be while they're here, because we know that that's going to help them persist and help them meet their goals while they're here with us as well. I want to tell you about something new. If you are not a parent of a new first year student, maybe you've been here for a little bit, you might have heard about prevention services before. And we do different types of outreach programs. And some of the things we've done before are drop-in spaces. And this year we've decided on a new framework. And one of those is, I love the little acronym POPs, which is Prevention Outreach Programs. And I say that to you tonight to help you remember that. But this is really something I would love for you to kind of like stick in your back pocket and remember, because POPs are programs that are designed specifically to help your students to gain skills and help them to build resilience and also to gain connections. And so these are programs that are run by our professional staff members in prevention services throughout the semester. A lot of times they're run in a series. And so if a student misses a series, it'll be offered again. They can come at another time. We also try to offer them both on both campuses, on the main campus and on Centennial. Again, we really want to offer them at days and times that are really convenient to our students. So they're a wide offering. For example, we have a pop called Building Brilliance. This is specifically for students who are not neurotypical. So these might be students who have ADHD, who might be on the autism spectrum, or have any other type of just non-neurotypical diagnoses. And so this might be a great place for them to learn some skills. Also social skill building. They'll learn some academic skills. And so that can be a really helpful place for them to really gain confidence, and to also make some friends. I personally work at the intersection of nature and mental health. And so we know that that can be really restorative to our students. It can also help rebuild attention. That's in partnership with some of the colleges, CHAS, and in the spring, we'll do one with the College of Natural Resources. That's a great place for students to come and also to de-stress and things of that nature. We also have one that's built around crafting for self-expression. We have one called Rise and Reset that's meant for students who might be struggling academically to come and gain academic skills, but again, social support at the same time. So I hope you can see that these are really meant to help students dive in and give them a skill set that they may need to be successful and also gain confidence, but also to gain self-esteem around their experiences with us. We do lots of other mental health education. We do stress management. We do anxiety management. We also do our QPR training. So we are also a JED certified campus, which we're really proud of. That basically is a certification through the JED Foundation. And that means that NC State has done everything it can possibly do to certify that we are doing, again, everything that we can do to prevent suicide. And that is training our campus community on how to recognize the signs and symptoms of suicide and also how to intervene and how to get a student to support and help that they might need. And so we are really proud of that. And we also offer QPR for parents and families. And so if you haven't done that yet, would really encourage you to do that when that comes up and that's being offered. I mentioned to you a few minutes ago our CARES referral program. I also hope that you heard about this at orientation whenever you came to that. Excuse me. But again, the referral program is here for you. So, for example, if your student is calling and they're saying, I am so stressed, I don't know, I can't focus, I'm having difficulty with my preparing for my exams. I'm not sure where to go. I don't know how to get the support that I need. This might be more for a newer student. This would be a great thing to make a referral for. If your student is still having roommate concerns in their adjustment to the university, that would be a good referral concern. If you are a family who is still trying to figure out some financial aspects of making tuition and fees work, that's a great referral concern to come through. If your student is like, I'm really looking for math tutoring or I'm looking for specific support in a class, that's a great referral. If a student is having mental health concerns, if they're really struggling with depression, if they're saying to you, hey, I haven't been going to class. I don't know what's happening in the classes because I haven't been there. So I'm very behind. I don't know how I'm going to get back on track. That would be a great referral concern to come into us. So what we hope to do when the referrals come in is we reach out to the student so that we can make a meeting with them, meet with them, and then make an action plan together to get them connected with the right people, the right programs, and the right services to help make things better. And that's what we do. And we do it in a way that is holistic and that in a way that the student feels like is ready for them. So meaning like we're not going to tell them, hey, here's all the things you need to do if that's not something that they're feeling capable of doing. We'll do it as they feel ready, like in increments as well. So we can kind of walk them through those steps over time as necessary. And so we love when parents make referrals. Again, talk to you a little bit about that alcohol and other drug support that we have. We also really want to support students who are in recovery. We have students who have really struggled with substances in the past, and who really want to be free of that. So we want to give them that one-on-one support, but we also support those students together in recovery groups. And so they meet together once a week for a support meeting. They also have social activities that they do together in order to provide that psychosocial piece. And so we encourage our students to be involved in that. And we have a pretty robust group this year of about between 40 and 50 students. So we're really excited about that. So some of you might be thinking, well, what are some things that people, what are our top referral concerns? That's a great question. Academic stress is our number one referred concern. I think that makes a lot of sense at a top research one university such as NC State. I think a lot of our students, when they first get here, they're unsure about the level of academic rigor. And so sometimes it's a little bit more than what they thought it was going to be. And I think that that is perfectly normal. And so they are still in the process of figuring out, how am I going to do this? What does this look like? What type of new academic skills do I need? How do I need to adjust my studying? How do I need to adjust my time management? So there's a lot of things to be learned, I think, in that first year to help manage academic stress. We can help with that. Unexplained absences come in, and that usually has to do when students are really struggling because they stop going to class. Um, and that is often correlated with number three, with depression. Anxiety and depression are the top two concerns that present also to our counseling center. Personal loss, family stress, loneliness, and isolation are other top concerns there. Okay. So as a parent myself, I would want to know, what should I be looking for? And, our students don't always present to us in the ways that we think that they're going to when they're struggling. And I want to tell you that. So if you feel like I might have missed it, that's okay. So I'm going to give you what I feel like is a pretty big list here. So that these are things that you can kind of tuck away in your mind, so that these are things that you can kind of be looking for if necessary. And so one of the main things is changes in sleep or appetite. So this would be something probably that your student is going to be reporting to you because they're not living with you at this time. And so we get concerned about this, particularly if we have students who have dramatic changes where they're staying awake for long periods of time. That can be very dangerous because the student can have some serious mental health concerns that would come out of that, mainly psychosis, like a break with reality. So we really, that would be a major concern. Any also major changes in appetite if we're not eating regularly. That would be a sign that, maybe that could be anxiety. We can't eat because we're just feeling generally unwell because our anxiety is so high. Or it could be we are feeling really depressed, and so we're just not feeling an appetite, so we don't want to eat. So again, those are all potential reasons for changes in those areas that we would want to maintain curiosity about. Changes in mood, particularly moods that kind of rapid cycle, especially if we have any really high highs or low lows or things that we would want to be curious about. Withdrawal, if you have a student who is, a really social person, is really involved in things, but suddenly is no longer interested in those types of things anymore. Maybe you're picking up on, hey, they're just staying in their room all day. They're not doing any of those things anymore. That type of isolation is often correlated with depression. We would want to try to have intervention around that. Drop in school functioning. So unusual functioning in any of these areas that are listed here, whether it be at school or in work or their social activities or they're quitting sports. Some of these things could be like, I don't feel like I can handle managing things in all of these areas. I really need to cut down so I can focus in on some areas. That's what it could mean, which that could be very good. But it also could be like, I'm feeling very overwhelmed. I don't know how to manage my time. Or it could be, I just do not feel capable. I'm not going to do anything. So we really don't know. So it's again, that's why we would want to meet with someone. We would want to talk through those types of questions. Problems with thinking. If somebody is having difficulty with concentration, memory, if the thought process doesn't seem clear, like you're not following them, or there are problems with speech, we would want to be curious. Increased sensitivity to light, sound, smell, or touch, avoidance of overstimulating situations. If there's just a general apathy, if they are feeling really disconnected from themselves or again, from their surroundings, or just a general sense of reality. Illogical thinking, and what that might look like is just really unusual, exaggerated beliefs about things or about personal powers. Um, I'll give you kind of an example of this. I met with a student who had some concerns. It was clear to me in the course of our time together that um, he believed that maybe we were not the only two people in the room together. And so that was a sign that there might have been some hallucinations that were happening. So that's kind of an example of what I mean by that. Nervousness, other unusual behaviors, changes in school or work, again, increased absenteeism, worsening performance, difficulties, relationships with peers or coworkers. So I'm giving you a really broad sense of concerns. And again, these could mean something. They might mean a little something. They might mean more than that. And we're not sure until we really meet with the student and do a holistic assessment to kind of see what's what. But we're prepared, again, to help them in these situations get connected with the support that they need. Okay, so what are some reasons that all of these things might be presenting in this particular way? One, the transition from high school to college is often more difficult than we anticipate. I personally have a daughter who is an only, and I could imagine she's not living on a residential campus currently, but I could imagine her living with somebody for the very first time would be a real challenge. And so, living with someone that you often don't know, sharing that space with them, learning how to um, communicate with them, how to learn how to talk about conflicts that you might have together. Those are all really, difficult things. Also, while you're figuring that out, you're managing a new city, often a new state, for some a new country. You're also learning how to manage yourself for the very first time. You have your own money sometimes, you have this new independence. No one's telling you when to go to bed, no one's telling you when to eat. You might be trying to figure out, oh, am I going to work and go to school? How do I juggle my own responsibilities? What am I going to study when I'm not in class? Because there's no parent telling me when I should do this. So it's a lot to self-manage and self-regulate. And so I think sometimes as parents, we are not even thinking so much about how much that really is for them for the first time if we have not been giving them time and space to practice this while they were in high school before they have left the nest. Often again, as I had mentioned, there are differences in academic rigor, expectations, and responsibilities. They're having to get used to new styles of teaching. From high school, they might not be used to going to a full lecture style. They might be used to having notes being taken for them and being given those. They might, be trying to figure out how to do that all at the same time. They may be not used to obviously going to a lecture and then managing how to go to a lab and how does this all work together. So they're having to adapt to those new styles, other academic changes. Also, how you make an A in high school and how you make an A in college are a little bit different. And so the amount of time and energy that go into making an A in high school is maybe a little bit different than the time and energy that goes into making an A in college. And so there's also a figuring it out process that goes with that. I remember when I was in college, very first test, I'll never forget. It's many, many years later. I think I made a 73 and I was very disturbed by that, but that moment, that low grade was actually very motivating to help me go to meet with my professor to figure out where I went wrong and how I could do better. And it was clear to me that I had not studied in a way that was going to help me perform at an A level. So I was going to have to do something different. So that was actually such a great experience to have early on. And I can just say that if that would be something that as parents and family members that would be helpful for you to frame it in this way to your students when they struggle and come to you and they are so disappointed that they didn't make an A on those first tests or on those midterms. You can say, this is an actual learning process. You are figuring this out. So next time you'll know there are different ways that you can do this. There are people who can help you figure out how to do this differently. So I think these are the ways as parents that we can be really supportive to our students. The other part that I said is also kind of, again, this balance of life is figuring out how to manage the class time, the study time, the friends, the work, the clubs, the organizations, the self-care. It's a lot to figure out in the big schedule of things. And then we have a lot of students who come here thinking, I want to do I'm just going to randomly pick something. I'm going to do wildlife and fisheries. And I thought about this while I was in high school, and I had a teacher, a science teacher, who told me that they thought I would be really good at this, and this is what I'm going to do. And then they get into the classes, and then they're like, well, this isn't exactly what I thought this was going to be. And so that creates a little bit of a seed of doubt, right? And so now they're having to figure out, oof, is this actually what I want to do? And that may create its own anxiety. And so they're trying to figure out now, maybe with their friends, with you, with their advisor, with their professors, about whether this is actually the right path for them. And so that can be a hard time to figuring that out. And so some students really feel like, oh, I've really failed, I've really messed up because I chose this and this is not right. How we would love to frame it up as parents, but also as higher education professionals, is, whoa, this is great. You actually came here, you tried something, you had these experiences, so you had actual practical knowledge in the field to make a more informed decision and choice to say, oof, I don't think this is actually what I was looking for. And so ruling something out is just as valuable as ruling something in. So again, these are the types of conversations that I think can be really powerful and really helpful, that you can have with your students and that we can also have with them, again, in supporting them in this holistic manner. Fear of failure at this time, I think, is really hard. There also, a lot of our students say, I'm afraid of disappointing my parents. I think they're as invested in this as I am. And so, I met with a student this week who said, I really feel like I need to take a step back. I need to drop a few classes for my mental health, but I don't feel like my parents will support that decision. And so we were trying to navigate, what would that conversation look like? Also, what would it mean if he did do that? What would it mean for his graduation? This, that, and the other. So students are really trying, to, in their young adulthood, manage these things for themselves, but also I think sometimes, in a way that honors their families, but also tries not to disappoint them, but also honors, their paths too. So those are all really difficult challenges in young life. All right, so let's talk about some supports that are available to your students that are really important. One of those obviously being our counseling center. One of the things that I love is, obviously, students can come to the counseling center, they can meet with their counselors there. But we also have these embedded counselors, which are inside the colleges. And so each of those embedded counselors have some drop-in hours. So students can go while they're in those areas and talk with them for consultation. Maybe say, I've never been in counseling before. I'm not really sure if this is for me, but like, here's kind of the things that I'm going through. What do you think about this? Should I come? Should I do something else? And so that's what I mean by consultation. And we also have something called Let's Talk drop-in spaces. And there'll be some links that'll come up for that later. And those are in different spaces across the community, the campus community, that are really beneficial for our students. Again, they can have that same type of consultation. So I think these are important because we're putting the counselors where the students are to help increase the accessibility for our students, so that they can't say, oh, well, it was too far away, or I didn't know how to do it. We're making them be right there for them. I've talked about the CARES program. Again, that whole program is meant to be early intervention, to give immediate support and also connection to resources for your student. The prevention services outreach programs, or those POPs that I talked to you about, are those programs to help build skills, to build connection, to build that resilience for their well-being. We love to also refer students to wellness coaching. Students automatically get 4 sessions of wellness coaching for free, which is an amazing built-in service that your students have access to. Academic peer mentors. This program has a waiting list every single semester. That's how amazing it is. But this is a great mentoring program to figure out all the things that we talked about. How do I study? How do I get focused in? How should I take notes in some of these classes? How do I do these things differently if I need to? From high school, because I'm not succeeding in the way that I wanted to, or I don't want to not do well, and so I want to start working with a mentor from the very start. get on their waiting list. Those are great. Our community centers in Tally, for all different types of students, highly recommend. TogetherAll is our online peer support platform. You can access that from the Prevention Services website. That is that has clinical oversight, and so I do love that. That's a place where students can go, particularly if they're struggling to find community. Is to talk about it's global, and so they can talk with students globally about things that they care about or they're concerned about. If a student does say something concerning, again, has that clinical oversight, which as a parent, but also as a student affairs person, I do love that. And they follow our risk management protocols, which is great. Alcohol and other drug education, I told you we can do that one-on-one. We also provide Basics, which is a brief alcohol intervention for college students that uses motivational interviewing. We really talk with students about usage and how to reduce. Um, and then we also have our Office of Student Life and Advocacy. They're in their second year. They help us with housing resources, our food pantry, financial grants to our students, and they also help us with absence verification. So these are tons of things that we help students connect with. And sometimes I will call this when students say to us, "Oh, well, how do can you explain what this is like?" And I say, it's kind of like when you go to a fancy hotel that has a concierge and you tell them what you need and they help you get those things. That's how I think of our work sometimes is you come to us and you don't know where all the resources are. And you tell us what your problem is or what you're looking for, and we tell you how to access that. Again, all these resources are for you right here. You can use the CARES referral program when you have a concern about your student. You can also consult with us. Love for you to call us to ask to speak with a CARES coordinator about your concerns and say, hey, here's what's going on. I'm not sure what I should do. What do you recommend? We love having those conversations. Also QPR, I mentioned again, that is a way for you to get specialized training to recognize the warning signs of suicidality and to also then know what to do if you are picking up on those signs and how to have important intervention. And Parent and Family Services will be giving you more information about that, I'm sure, in the future. I also just wanted to share with you additional information. One is a website that the university has, which is called Lighten Your Pack. It's searchable, so if you're looking for a particular type of resource, it will lead you to those types of resources. Student involvement, if you want to know, like, if your student is saying, I'm so bored, or I haven't connected, I haven't found my people, I don't have a sense of community yet, then look on the student involvement website and see what's going on over the next few days. There'll be a link for that. And there's also the university calendar. Every time I do a program, I'm putting it on the university calendar, hoping that students will go there and see it. And so you can see all the things that are coming up. Headspace is also available to our students. Again, encouraging you to also encourage your students to attend prevention services outreach programs, just encouraging them to try new things. And that's what this time is for. Like they're not out in the world yet. They're not, having to work 40 hours necessarily. We want them to, experiment, to explore things. I really encourage students to attend office hours, and I know that can be very scary for a lot of students. But let me tell you, professors and TAs love students who show up for office hours. They love talking about the things that they've studied for years. It also puts your student in such a favorable light. It shows them as engaged, it shows them as interested, and they want to hear what your students are thinking about, what they're struggling with. And so it's a win-win for your student to go to those office hours with the professor or with the TA. Also encouraging the use of all the tutorial centers, that academic peer mentoring, the tutoring. Sometimes students feel a certain type of way, sometimes about using the resources if they've never used these types of resources before. But what we want to say is like, we want to use all the resources available if that's what we do to meet our goals, right? And so we might have not done that in the past, but in this situation, this might be the thing that we do for our well-being. This is what we need to do to be successful, to reach our end game goals. And so I think we want to help them understand like that's something that would make the most sense for them. So you can be very helpful in encouraging them to do those things.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Yes.
We have so many great resources on this campus, and we know that students are often struggling and sometimes they don't know how to reach out, and our families are their biggest allies in a lot of ways, and they're the ones that oftentimes are intercepting those phone calls, and it's important that families have this information to be able to circle that back into their students. So thank you for sharing all of that. And now we want to hear the questions. What are you all thinking? And I'll let Monica kind of guide us through some Q&A with Laura to continue her sharing her wisdom with us.
Yeah, we have a few questions for the night. So the first one is, what are some ways parents unintentionally add stress, and how can we avoid that?
I think this is a really good question. And I sometimes think about this, as I said at the top, that in having a brand new college student myself. And sometimes I have to remind myself as a parent that I have already been to college and that this isn't my experience, it's my child's experience. And so her experience is going to be uniquely different than my own, and that's okay. And the way I did it doesn't have to be the way that she did it. And so I think parents have to be really careful to not put too much expectation on their kids to do everything the way that they did from the past. They can say, hey, this might be helpful to you. This is how I did it, or here's some of the things that I did when I was in college, and I really enjoyed these things. But that might not be for everyone. And so we really have to be mindful of that. The other thing is, I think it's good to have expectations and make those clear at the very top, whatever that might be for your family. But also maybe giving a little space, to the student, not being too repetitious with those things because that might create a little stress and anxiety. I think potentially. So I would be careful with this.
And the next one is, how can I get my student connected to resources if they are reluctant to do so?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say explore reluctance. Like this is where I say, like, put on your little detective hat and say, tell me what's going on. Like what makes you reluctant to go and meet with someone to talk about this, like a professional in this area? Because I think that will give you a lot more information that will be helpful to you in really understanding what's going on here. So that would be number one. Um, but as we talked about tonight, you've got the CARES referral in your pocket. And so you can talk to your student, and I would love for you to openly talk to your student to say, hey, I know that you are maybe reluctant to do these things or you're not sure how to go about it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this care referral for you. And my hope is that you will respond to them and that you will make a meeting with them and really talk through some of these things. And, follow up with me. Let me know how that goes, and I hope that it will be really helpful to you. So just framing it up to them in the best possible way as someone who is going to walk alongside them to help make things better.
And the next question is, what is the difference between prevention and counseling?
Such a fundamental, important question. And I like to frame it up as like we're in a family together. We're kind of like siblings. And so people who work in the counseling center are all licensed clinicians, and their work is centered and focused on providing either individualized clinical therapy or providing group therapy. And the people who work in prevention services are also licensed clinicians, or either social workers or licensed clinical mental health counselors, but we are not doing therapy with our students. And what we are doing again are those providing that high quality psychoeducation via outreach to your students. And we're providing those early intervention programs to your students. So whether that be through basics, through our alcohol and other drug program, or through our CARES program. Again, being those early intervention efforts. And then we also have our mental health ambassador program, which is a peer educator program that we facilitate. So we we're again in the same family, but two different types of pieces of work that we do together, but they go together nicely. They play together nicely.
And then, what are some healthy ways to help my student problem solve rather than fix things for them?
Uh, this is such a good question. And um, so sometimes what I'll do if my daughter presents to me a problem, I'll say, well, what do you think could be done about this? So I'm asking her first, what are her thoughts on the matter? Because that's going to help me understand her point of view, and I'm also going to learn a lot more about her thinking process. In that, I want to help play the role more of a coach, help coaching her to think about what her options are or to an end game solution. I want to help her get there on her own as opposed to solving the problem for her. Because I feel like as parents and family members, if we solve the problem for them, then we've kind of stolen an opportunity from them to learn how to do this. And so I look at this as a really important time as parents and families to help our students develop these skills. And so you really are playing such an important role right now to help them cognitively with this, like a supportive frame to think through these things that they're trying to do. So if they're saying, I feel really sick. Okay, I'm so sorry to hear that. What do you think you could do about that at your school? Does your school have anywhere that you could go to get health care? Oh, okay, you have a campus health. That's great. How do you get an appointment there? Oh, they have a Healthy Pack portal. Okay, do you know how to access that? Oh, okay. Well, you're gonna go on your phone right now and do it. That's fantastic. Okay, you made an appointment. I'm so proud of you. Okay, it's going to be on Thursday. Great. And so you have helped them, you've guided them to the solution. You've also reinforced this as a new behavior, and you've given them, you've praised them for doing it, and you've shown them that they are capable and they can do it. And I just think that's such an important role for us right now. And so I'm just saying we're moving into these new territories, these new supportive roles in guiding them to do these things, these skills, and that's really beautiful. And so I'm happy for us. I'm happy for us that we can do this.
Laura, I just want to add, if I may, I heard
Yes.
something when we did our book club over the summer. I don't remember how it came up in the conversation, but to your point, kind of to build on the opportunity that's presented to a challenge, right?
Yeah.
I heard it framed with, there's rarely a better feeling when you have failed at something and then gone back and accomplished it. And if we remove all of the barriers and
Yep.
we fix it for them, and I'm a mom too, right?
Yep.
I am removing the opportunity and also kind of stealing that opportunity from my student to
Yep.
relish in that confidence of they could go back and they could do it. And I'm kind of taking that feeling away from them because I've just done it for them. And now they don't have the experience of that feeling that then gives them the confidence in the future to try again. And
Absolutely.
and I loved having it framed that way because sometimes I think as parents, we know that it's probably easier if we just make that appointment or get that done for them, but or solve the problem that they feel like is so large and such a mushroom. But ultimately, it doesn't serve us any purpose to do that, and it certainly doesn't serve their student. We know the great feeling that it is when we've accomplished something, but we
Right.
want them to learn that feeling to have the
Mhm.
confidence in the future. And I just thought that that was such a beautiful way to frame that, and I hope it's okay. I just wanted to kind of build on.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. That was beautifully said.
What's our next question, Monica?
So, the last question of the night is how can I check in about my students' mental health in a way that feels supportive and not intrusive?
Mm. This is such a very specific question to your student. And so what I'm saying might not feel authentically best for your students. So please understand that. Um, but when I'm thinking about my own daughter, I'm asking her, I, I'll say, like, how are things going? And then how are you feeling about it? And I'm asking, how are things going? So she has to elaborate on something to me. It's not a yes or no question. I mean, she could tell me it's fine, it's going okay. And I'll say, but I could go off from there a little bit specifically. I could be like, okay, well, what about the classes? And then I could say, but how do you, okay, so how are you doing with it all? So that I feel like is kind of soft. It's getting at a little bit more about her, but I'm not directly saying, hey, how are you doing with your mental health? Or how are you doing with your anxiety specifically? Or how are you doing with your depression? That might feel a little too on the nose, but other ways you might be able to say it is like, hey, are you feeling really supported right now? Are you feeling like really satisfied? I like to say things like, are you feeling satisfied? Are you feeling like this is a meaningful experience? I like these two types of terms as opposed to happiness. Like, are you feeling happy? I feel like sometimes people don't know how to connect with that. And happiness is also very fleeting. Whereas contentment, satisfaction feel more longer term and more sustainable, more achievable. And so I feel like I like to ask about those types of things to my own kid. And so maybe those are some ways that you can talk with your students to try to get a sense of really how they're feeling and where they're at, and really maybe expand on that conversation with them.
I love that. Thank you so much, Laura. I think that's all such helpful information for any of us, helping anyone. And I think it's a good reminder, particularly for, well, all of our families, but I think first year families with students who have come in with such high expectations of themselves, to make sure that we're asking the questions that are full 360 questions, not just dialed in on one area. All right, we're not just asking about classes, but we're also not just asking about mental health. We're asking really about everything. And that's what I love about how you pose the question, is it truly that's your student can take that in any direction that they would like. And if they choose not to, then you get to then take it in the direction that you would like until they're ready to kind of reciprocate that conversation. And so I think that it's really important that, we ask all of the questions. I think our students are ready for us to ask about the classes. That's the expectation.
Mhm.
But they're evolving and growing beyond that. And we have to remind them of that sometimes and also ourselves and acknowledge that. And again, speaking as a parent myself. And so I think it's really important that we're helping our students by asking that question for them to have that reminder too.
Mhm.
Thank you
Absolutely.
so much, Laura, for your time. This has been
Thank you.
wonderful and really helpful. And thank you for the plug for QPR. I'm also just going to kind of build on that for just a second. Um, some of you may have seen during Family Weekend, we offered a session for QPR. We ended up postponing it. We're going to try to do a virtual session with Laura, and perhaps maybe get some higher numbers. I know there's interest, and so I'm going to empower all of our viewership to really reach out to us about this. I think well, I know it's an intimidating topic, and it's certainly not something that everyone wants to come in and spend their joyful family weekend talking about. And I recognize that. However, we know that it is a very real topic, and it is something that, what I personally like about QPR is it isn't just about your student. These are skills that you're going to walk away with that your student, anyone in your life can truly benefit from. And what I love about it is, and I remember when I became a facilitator, having that parallel with the majority of us, we're CPR certified, right? We're not there to fix it. We're just there to know how to get the help in the moment of the crisis. And that's what QPR does for mental health and suicide prevention. And so hopefully with that, we'll send out another message from our office probably next month at some point and figure out when that next session's going to be. But we welcome you into those spaces, and we also welcome your students into those spaces. We have had families do it alongside their student too. And I think that that is powerful and meaningful. And it equips all of us. And that's why it's so important. So thank you for that plug on that, Laura. All right, let's go ahead. I know we're running short on time, and let's wrap it up for the evening. A couple reminders for everyone. As always, we want to give you some upcoming dates. If we can go to the next slide. You all should know that fall break, I'm sure your students have been talking about it for weeks, is coming right up. Many students, if they're not already home, are heading home. And so that's coming up this weekend. The schedule for spring and summer just dropped yesterday. So that's another conversation you could have with your student, kind of starting to look at classes for the spring, but also a good reminder for them to check with their advisors. And this is the time where they should be starting to reach out to their advisors to plan for the spring and the summer semesters. Red and White Week is our homecoming week. Mark those dates, October 26th through the 6th. Check out our website. So many great events happening that week, campus-wide, virtually, in different regions, and something truly for everyone. And then, of course, Thanksgiving break is November 26th through the 28th. And we're only going to take you that far. We'll have more information and more dates. We may have one more Facebook Live between now and Thanksgiving break. So watch our social media posts for that. And then for those of you that may not know yet, if you haven't seen our website or if you weren't at Family Weekend, if you jump to the next slide, a very exciting announcement is that our Spring Family Weekend has been announced. And so the dates for Spring Fling are March 6th through the 8th in 2026, which sounds crazy just to say out loud. Registration opens on January 14th, and we are finalizing the logistics of what that weekend's going to look like, the schedule of events and all of that. So on our website right now, it has the dates, pretty much this information with some highlighted events, but the schedule of events and that link is not updated yet. I believe it still shows last year's, along with some highlights and photos from last year too. So we're going to be working on that in the next couple of weeks. We're still wrapping up from our big weekend last weekend. So with that, thank you again, Laura. Thank you, Monica, behind the scenes. We know that one of our best things about Facebook Live is that if you missed it here, you can always save the video and come back to it later. And it also lives on our YouTube page. And so we will share this out in our upcoming newsletter that goes out. And we hope that you will revisit this content and remember these resources because they are helpful, not just now, not just tomorrow, but in the future as well. We are here to support you and your students in any way that we can. So thank you again, Laura. Thank you, Monica. Wishing everyone a happy and relaxing fall break. And as always, go Wolfpack.